Hey everybody, welcome back to Dental Unfiltered. I'm Matt Brown, and I have my normal co-host here, Dr. Andrew Vallo, greatest startup doc in history. And we have an awesome episode for you. So the greatest startup doc in history, probably one of the biggest personalities in dental, meets Alex Hormozi, probably one of the biggest names in just internet influencers in business. If you don't know who he is, he always wears a nasal strip across his nose. He's jacked. He has long hair, a big beard. And the guy, if you were looking at any business, motivational, anything, the guy is in your timeline every 5 seconds. You can't miss him. And Andrew got to talk to him and do a Q&A with him and be at one of his events. And he gave some pretty good advice to Andrew. So, Andrew, tell me what it was like, first of all, being in a room with Alex, and tell me what you benefited out of it and what it meant to you.
Man, you talk about meeting your heroes or whatever, and some of you guys may think that that's corny because we're adults and we're dentists and we're all successful people. But I'll tell you, man, like I get inspired listening to some of these stories, and I think Alex Hormozi's story is pretty cool. I've taken a lot from his free content. I've listened to his podcast is one of my new favorites. I listen to it probably at least once or twice a week at the gym. I listen to a handful of different podcasts, but I really do enjoy the content he puts out. And so I made the decision, my business partner and I, Sasha, we went out to Vegas to his scaling workshop. And I'm not going to go into too much detail in the workshop itself because I don't want to, step on toes, and, I'm sure they don't want me sharing, too much. But I will say it was a great experience. Alex has an incredible team. So, I'm a big believer in, talent is one of your most valuable resources. And actually, that's something we're going to talk about here in this episode in a little bit. But I think Alex is a big subscriber to that. When you meet some of his team members, with his group, with his company, he really pulls in some of the brightest and best. Like he is pulling in, major founders of other companies. He's pulling in CEOs, COOs of large corporations and IT startups out in the valley, and all this other Silicon Valley, all this stuff. The talent that was in that room, the people we were talking to. So not just Alex, who obviously has done some incredible things, but like his entire team he surrounds himself with, down to the sales, the people trying to sell us. Because, obviously it's not just a workshop. There's, mastermind groups just like everyone else has that you can join. And it's funny enough, I was taking notes on their sales process as they were trying to sell to me. And I told the sales guy, and this kid was in his young 20s. I said, man, I don't know how old you are, but you are doing an incredible job. You would run circles around most quote unquote salespeople in the dental space, which are treatment coordinators. And so, he was talking about, and this is something Alex kind of mentioned too, they don't go out there looking for super experienced salespeople. They just look for people that are often young and hungry who, and they make sales easier. So the way that they've developed their sophisticated sales process is they feel like they can bring in anyone who's ambitious, young, and hungry. They don't have to have any sales experience, that they can train them well enough that sales becomes second nature to them within their systems. And I thought that was really powerful because I've been trying to look for more accomplished salespeople to join our group as treatment coordinators. And we've had a lot of trouble finding these people who want to go into dental because typically they're typically not already in dental. They're typically somewhere else, and we're trying to recruit them to join dental. And it's been a challenge. It has. So that was a refreshing idea. I don't necessarily need to find the most talented salespeople. I just need to find people that are hungry to do something, and I need to improve and fine tune. And honestly, guys, I had a dentist say to me, because I was telling him this. He's like, I feel like within the dental world, you guys have a pretty incredible sales system and the KPIs you track and everything. I go, I agree. However, I don't want to compare us to industry standard. If industry standard for dental for sales for a dental office is probably pretty subpar. So if I'm better than industry standard, that doesn't really say a whole lot.
It is.
I'd rather compare us to some of the best companies in the business world, not exclusive to dental, and say, what do we need to do to be more like these companies? And so that was like one thing I took from the event was like, man, they are incredible at their sales process. I need to work on ours if I want to even come close to, the level that they're doing things at. So that was big. I did get to talk to Alex one-on-one. So, Alex did a Q&A session with, the group, and some of you may have seen the video of me that circulated on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, but he put out the full clip on YouTube. It was, I don't know, 5 minutes of us kind of going back and forth. And there's a shorter clip on Instagram and Facebook. But basically what you did is a few people, again, sales, I think they pre-qualify the room. They find people with either interesting businesses or interesting growth stories or, large revenue numbers or whatever it was. But you're supposed to get up there and you're supposed to say, hey, this is my name, this is my business. Or actually you're supposed to say, this is what I sell, this is who I sell to, what your revenue is, what your next goal is, and what's stopping you from getting there. So I got up and I said, hey, I'm Andrew, I sell dental services to people in Florida, and he kind of got a chuckle out of that. But I said, our revenue is 25 million. I'd like to go to 50. I'd like to double our group again because we've doubled almost every single year for the last few years. What's stopping me is mainly talent acquisition. Again, going back to salespeople, leadership positions, executive team, office managers, even, and dentists. And honestly, dentists have been pretty easy for us. Fortunately, I think between the podcasts, we've brought in people to the group from the podcast who listen to what we're doing. Dental Facebook groups. My partner just knows the Florida dental community pretty well. He's pretty involved in it as a specialist, and he runs these dental show and tells, which are like CE events for young dentists and things. And then some Indeed ads and things like that. But basically, we've never had trouble finding a good doc for an office. But as we continue to grow and scale it, and honestly, we're raising the bar on the doctors we're looking for. So, it used to just be, hey, like, we're looking for a doc who's got a good attitude, who's coachable, who maybe has some advanced skills. And more recently, I realized, like, man, the trajectory of our group is, especially with the new startups where there's only one doctor in the office, the more advanced the doctors are, the more procedures they can do comfortably, the more confident they are, the better the office is going to do out the gate. So especially for the first doc in a new startup, like, we are looking for those docs who are super experienced with full arch implant cases, comfortable with restorative veneers, endo, Invisalign. Like, we really want those well-rounded. And they don't have to be like 10 out of 10 in every category, but we want them to be willing to go in there and do at least a little bit of everything, because that means we've got to refer like nothing outside the practice. And that's huge. We've also found a few docs who do IV sedation. So we're in the process of adding IV sedation in the group, which is big too. So my point is, we're growing faster. We're adding more offices. We're also getting pickier with the docs we're looking for. So it is starting to become a little bit more challenging for us to find the doctors we want for the group. But I told him my other biggest constraint was access to capital. So, as we've grown so quickly, it's gotten more challenging with our bank to keep getting the lending that we need for each of these practices, even though our revenue is, like I said, right around 25 million on, the trailing 12. We're almost there. We're going to be there really soon. We've been doing 2 million a month for the last 8 months or whatever. And I think we're only going up from here. But, revenue is almost 25 million, and EBITDA is strong. EBITDA margin in the low to mid 20s, about 23% right now. And cash flow is good. And we haven't had one dud of a startup yet. So I think we've got a proven track record with 10 offices. It's still, the bank is making us jump through more hoops. They're putting pauses on lending and while they're waiting for updated tax returns and things. So that was the other point of the question. I'm going to start actually with the capital. So, Alex's response, for those that haven't heard it, was basically like, okay, so you're telling me you guys are doing this in revenue, you're doing this in EBITDA, and you're doing these second gen, we talked a little bit about the second gen spaces and our cost per office. You're doing these second gen spaces. They're $200,000 to $300,000 to start them up. You want to do 4 to 6 new practices a year. Why is capital an issue? Because you've got plenty in cash flow where you could cash flow 4 to 6 practices at that cost. And I was like, yeah, you're right, but we'd have to cut back distributions. And, he got a big laugh out of that. And basically his response, so you can't buy the yacht or whatever. And so, of course, the whole room thought that was funny. And Alex was right in a sense. And I kind of took him on that. I was like, yeah, no, you're right. We are at this point cash flowing enough. We could sustain our current growth with our growth models without any outside lending. We definitely could. However, as you guys know, I'm big on cash is king. I want to keep as much cash on hand as possible. And it's not, I mean, guys, I don't have a yacht. I'm sorry if anyone comes to visit in Tampa. I don't have a boat. I do have a little John boat on my little kind of man-made lake in my neighborhood. But that's it, and it needs some work actually. I don't have a bunch of expensive clothes. I'm not a watch guy like Matt. Mainly when we make money, when we make distributions, it either goes into a high yield savings account, goes into crypto, which of course is down now. Hopefully it's going up later this year. But I'm mainly keeping a lot of cash on hand, so that way I can, if the bank won't lend, I can do more. And so like in my mindset is, I want to get as much money as possible from traditional lending as I can while saving as much cash as possible. So if I do hit a wall where I can't get any more traditional lending, I've got another avenue because I've got a bunch of money saved up where I can do it. So like rather than doing the practices in real time with my own money, I would rather take the financing now and then have the cash on hand that I could pivot and kind of become my own bank at some point in time. So, and I didn't say that response, but like that's kind of where my head is at on the whole situation. But again, Alex is right. We could be self-sufficient for growth if, as long as we kept the same model. We can't start buying $1 million practices on cash flow, not very easily at least. And we can't all of a sudden do 12 practices a year or 15 or whatever. Not that I necessarily want to speed up growth to that point, but just throwing that out there. The other thing was talent acquisition. And he talked a little about headhunters, but I asked him, I said, with a group our size, do you think it's time that we bring in an internal person, like a hiring manager, talent acquisition specialist, whatever it is? And he said, yeah. He said, hey, like at this point for us, it was taking a lot of time from our other lead, like our COO, in my mind, has so many better things he could be doing than hopping on all these interviews every week. Our regional manager, our office managers. So he said 100%, you guys are past that point where it would make sense to bring in a hiring manager. And so that we actually just hired one this week. So this is something I'm going to talk about for a second, and then I'm going to let Matt jump in. But basically, if you've got a group of practices, or even if you've got one of those mega practices, maybe you've got a big practice doing $6-7 million a year, it may be time to start thinking about this. Because I think we should have done this sooner. And I think Alex's advice is we probably should have done this sooner. But if you want everyone doing their highest purpose, and again, I want my chief sales officer, and at the workshop, this wasn't directly from Alex, but at the workshop, they talked about doing time studies with your key personnel and making sure they're not doing things that other people could be doing, that their time would be better spent elsewhere. So I want our chief sales officer focus like 100% of her time on driving revenue, whether it's directly, because she's still also a treatment coordinator, or indirectly through helping other treatment coordinators continue to improve and grow. I want our operations officer, again, very helpful at driving revenue. I want most of his tasks focused on that. Now, is hiring more people indirectly bringing in more revenue? Yes, but I feel like it's a much longer kind of roundabout path there. So, instead of these people that are best suited for other things, we found someone. We put up an ad. This was the easiest Indeed ad I've ever done, because here's why. I did it remote. Now, I did have someone give me advice that it's probably best to hire, even fully remote, hire somebody within your state, because I guess if we hired someone from outside Florida, it could add extra complexities with state taxes and payroll stuff and all that. So they had recommended, hey, if you can find someone remote in Florida, it could be better. And so we did. But I put up an ad for a remote talent acquisition specialist or talent acquisition manager, whatever we called them. And within 24 hours, I had to turn the ad off because we had over 150 applicants. And again, you talk about waste of your time, but in my mind, I was like, you know what? If I can just spend a couple hours now doing this, hopefully we can take away the hiring time from. I don't do a whole lot of it these days, but for myself, our COO, our regional manager, our CFO. I mean, we had like everyone was kind of dipping their hands a little bit in hiring. We can have one person in charge of 98% of the process. The other cool, I mean, guys, I put up qualifying questions when I'm hiring. So like the questions were based on experience in a talent acquisition or hiring role, number of hires in the last 12 months, how long it takes them to fill a hire. And I use ChatGPT for these questions. So ChatGPT gave me like 8 great pre-screening questions. Some people didn't answer the questions at all. They automatically got axed. Some people didn't have the right experience, automatically got axed. We had it whittled down to like 25 applicants after 24 hours that were qualified. And then there were a handful that were within the state of Florida. I think next time I'll kind of make that a requirement just to make it easier if we do another remote employee in the US like ourselves, not through a third party like VAs. And we did a couple interviews, and within a week we had a great, well-qualified applicant within Florida accept the role, and they're going to take over in like a week or two here. And they're going to do all of they're going to meet with our different teams. They're going to meet with the executive team, the office managers, figure out what positions need to be hired for, do all of our ads, do the initial interviews, screen the candidates. They're also going to help with like onboarding and like HR retention type stuff. So I think this is going to be a really pivotal role. One, in that we're bringing in somebody experienced in hiring, and it is a bottleneck for us as we continue to scale. Not only are we adding more offices that need whole new teams, but a lot of our offices are growing, and we need to add a second hygienist, sometimes a second doctor, another assistant, another treatment coordinator. So there are a lot of hires that are happening at this point in time, and I think that's going to be huge. If I took nothing else from that 2-day workshop, I think the idea that we needed a hiring manager was impactful enough that it returned more than the ROI we spent on the event.
Meeting Alex must be awesome. I mean, I don't.
It was intimidating, man. His arms look even bigger in person. So
do they? Whatever. I can take him. So
yeah. He's always wearing. If you guys haven't seen him, I mean, he's all over social media, but he's always wearing and I guess actually, guys, if you're listening to this and you don't know who Alex Hormozi is, I recommend, 1, look up his podcast, fantastic. 2, just look up a little bit about him. Like again. He must, I mean, I know he spends a ton. He's talked about how much he spends on advertising, but all over social media, his videos and stuff. He did a book. He set a record for a book launch with the most revenue in like 24 hours or whatever for one of his books, the Money Models or whatever, $100 million Money Models. He started and sold a gym consulting company called Gym Launch for like $46 million. That's all public. He talks about it too a few years ago. Then he started acquisition.com. Actually, it's genius what they do. So they do consulting for businesses. They do these workshops. They do these mastermind groups. And then they have kind of a business portfolio. They're basically kind of creating their own, I believe it's like a private equity company where they're investing in businesses, bringing them into their portfolio. And I think as of last year, they were at like $250 million in revenue under their business portfolio. And Alex's goal is to get that portfolio group up above $1 billion. So they're essentially bringing in great businesses, coaching them through the mastermind group, and then kind of finding or cherry picking the best businesses and offering to, acquire a portion of the business and kind of bring them into their portfolio. So really, really cool what they've done. I mean, he is, in my mind, one of the best that I've heard when it comes to sales and marketing. So, and again, he's brought in team members that are great with systems and, all kinds of other things. But I think those are, in my mind, from listening to his content, 2 of his biggest strong suits that set him apart from a lot of the other consultants and business gurus out there. Are just like he has a lock on marketing and the sales process. So, which I think applies to any business. We were there. I met another dentist. Supposedly there was another dentist in the room who commented on my Instagram post about it or whatever. But I mean, it was probably 100 plus people, all different businesses. They split you in small groups. So you get to do like these round table discussions where you get to find out about other people's businesses and the constraints that they're facing. And it's interesting to learn from other industries when often we're facing similar constraints. I learned from Alex's and his team, but I also learned from the other business owners and founders out there. So
yeah, I mean, Alex is somebody, I listen to his stuff. I see it. Whenever I see his face in my timeline, I stop and listen. Where I find him different than a lot of the other like business gurus is I think he actually gives out substance, where a lot of them give out a conclusion or give out like a dream. where he gives something of substance to make you think differently and change your mindset about the approach of the things you're working on, right?
Yeah, I think he's very like black and white, very blunt, which I find kind of refreshing. I mean, he'll give tough love too, man. He like one of the guys that stood up at the Q&A or got chosen to talk or whatever. He like ripped him apart a little, like in a like loving way, like in a tough love kind of way. But I mean, like he'll call you on your bullshit, and I think there's no like rah fluff emotion. Like he's not sitting. He's inspiring to me, like based on what he's done. But like he doesn't. That's not his approach. His approach is not to like inspire you. His approach is to give you non-emotional, sound business advice to take your business to the next level. And again, I do think that it's kind of refreshing because I think there is a lot of fluff out there.
Yeah, Alex is pretty awesome. I mean, like, I didn't have as much to contribute because you were there and you experienced it, and I wasn't there for the advice. I think that everything you said was pretty on point. So I don't have as much to contribute on this one, but I do know that when I see Alex in my timeline, I do stop to listen because I do feel like he's one of the ones with the most substance. I actually kind of like my two favorites are him and Gary Vee to listen to. I think Gary Vee gives a lot on mindset.
Yeah.
And on unlike you being lazy, there's a lot of them where it's like, you know, if you did this in broad strokes, you could be a millionaire. Or like, and it's just like, it's not. It's like, and then it's like, come take my, you know, my 1-day course so I can sell you on the mastermind. I have heard Alex's 1-day courses have more substance.
Yeah, it's a 2-day scaling workshop, but I agree. I think the ROI was there. It was actually ironic. The week I was getting ready to head out there, somebody posted in the dental investment Facebook group about seeing all of his ads and like wondering what the hoopla was all about, and you know, is it a scam or whatever? And I was like, hey, I'm going out there, so I'll keep you updated. And then I followed up and posted back about my experience and a link to the clip and all that stuff. So. That's the last. I guess that's what I'm going to end on here today. Is guys, I talk to a lot of dentists. I'm in the dental Facebook groups. I go to conferences. I feel like, and I mean we've talked about this. Honestly, we haven't talked about it as much recently, but I think it's still just as important as ever. That mindset is the biggest thing holding a lot of dentists back. And just like dentists are afraid to invest in marketing, invest in teams, invest in an associate. You know, they're afraid to take that risk. Like, what if my investment doesn't return what I'm hoping? What if it does? What if it returns more than you're hoping? So it's like, I think we're thinking about this the wrong way. A lot of dentists I've met are very skeptical about coaching, about mastermind groups, about business seminars. The word scam gets thrown out all the time. You know, I think that people are trying to scam you your money. People think dentists are easy marks, whatever it is. And I'm not saying that there's not people out there that aren't very good at what they do, consultant wise, or that don't just sell a bunch of fluff. Obviously there are. I mean, there was the quote unquote scammer in that one dental investment group where the guy disappeared with everyone's money. It's like, yes, I get it. That shit happens, man. I understand. However, like, we can't live in our fears, guys. And my response is like, for everyone that said like, man, I don't know how, Vallo did it. I don't know how he grew his group in 5 years from 0 to 25 million a year. Like, I don't understand how that's even possible. I mean, the reason is, guys, like, honestly, the number one reason by far is mindset. Like, I believe if I put the work in and make the investments, it will pay off. And like, has every single thing I've tried worked? No. I mean, I can think of one reason. My partner and I, so we're still sitting on a bunch of Pokemon cards. So we had the episode about Pokemon and ortho. For us, unfortunately, it's been kind of a flop. Despite the wild popularity of Pokemon cards, we have not had we're still sitting on a lot of them. We have not had great success bringing in pediatric clear aligner patients, which was the goal of that promotion. And I did mailers, I did social media ads, whatever it was, and for whatever reason, like, we thought it was a great idea. It was a cool idea to try. It didn't work, so I stopped pumping money into it. So like, guys, I'm wrong too. Sometimes there are things I invest in that don't turn the ROI I hope they would turn. But like, I would say those are in the minority. most of the time when I decide to invest in something, it at least kind of meets the ROI expectation, if not exceeds it. Sometimes it far exceeds it. And I'll tell you, even as we keep expanding the group, it's not that I don't get nervous, man. Trust me, I do. Especially when we're opening, we're opening 4 offices in like 3-month time span, and I'm having my second child right in the middle of all that. And we don't know about bank funding and all that stuff. We might be cash flowing a big chunk of it. Like, I get nervous. I do. Like, even though I've done this 10 times already, and every single time it's been a home run, you still wonder, like, is this going to be the time something breaks? Is this going to be the time it doesn't work? Whatever. So it's doing things despite being somewhat anxious or nervous or whatever it is. So, and again, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't take on some of that risk, believe in myself, make those investments, have that abundance mindset. And it does get easier. It's just, it's never totally easy. So the more you do it, the more you flex that muscle, the easier it gets to take the plunge. But you still have to fight yourself a little bit on it. And I still do, on a weekly basis, I still fight myself on it. So,
well, guys, this is an awesome episode about Andrew's experience with Alex. Thank you guys so much for joining. These outside resources outside dental are really good. Sometimes I cringe at some of the resources inside dental because there's a lot of unfounded things that are said. And sometimes these resources outside dental come from a different business point of view and an overall business point of view. And getting into that pond and thinking differently will really open your eyes and create a different approach to how you approach your practice. What I will tell you is in dental, a lot of the same stuff is regurgitated on stage over and over and over again.
It's actually a great point, Matt. And I just real quick want to touch on that before we wrap up. So I had a dentist tell me comment on my thing about Alex Hormozi and my experience there. And, he had mentioned, hey, I'm sure Alex is great, blah, 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 but he's not really geared towards dentists. And if you want somebody within the dental world who actually knows dental, who can give you the same stuff without the, extra price tag for, celebrity status or whatever, look at Tom Orent and, blah, blah, blah. He's great. And I commented back and I said, hey, Tom's a great guy. He's been on our podcast. Totally agree. He's got lots of good advice. I'm a subscriber to the idea that I want to learn from as many great minds as possible. So and I think that's another thing people get stuck on is like, oh, I'm already following this consultant's path or this person or, whoever it is. I'm already following those Dental Unfiltered guys, so I don't want to listen to anyone else. There's probably a lot of that going on. But guys, my advice is get out there and hear as many people as you possibly can. If you enjoy the podcast, I'm so happy, but I hope you're listening to other business and dental podcasts too, because other people have good ideas that may work better for you. You can listen to different ideas. You can try different ideas. So, that was kind of the point I was making earlier. I've invested 6 figures in my business/dental business education advancement yearly for the last couple of years in multiple mastermind groups, multiple seminars, all that stuff. I've learned from, in my mind, some of the best, but I'm constantly seeking more information because I know that the day I stop learning and stop listening to new people is the day that my group stops growing. So I think we need to constantly be learning. And to Matt's point, there are great minds within dental, great consultants, great dentists that I've learned a lot from. But if, once you've talked to them for years, I'm not saying stop listening to them, but I'm saying there's only so much one person can tell you. And like us, Matt and I get different perspectives as the group grows. So there are new things or different ideas or, whatever. But a lot of it is, somewhat regurgitated. So I do think, once again, I'm not telling you to stop listening to our podcast. You should probably keep listening because we'll still come out with some great stuff. But you should probably also find other great people to listen to if you're not already listening to others out there. So that was the point of all that. That was kind of my response to that guy about Tom Orent. I think Tom's great. I also think Alex is great. I also think Mark Costas is great. Gary Vee is great. So there are a lot of really, really smart people, and you can learn something from everyone.
There are great people in dental. I think it's like golf clubs in a golf bag, right? I think Tom Warren is great and Kelly Schwartz is great, but they're going to be like very specific about like Spencer Greer. A lot of these guys are very specific about like how to increase production, how to manage your schedule, how to cut PPOs. Yeah, Alex Hormozi can't help you with that. Neither can Gary V. But what they can do is change the way you look and think about things in your overall business that is honestly applicable in so many places. So yeah, those guys are great at what they do. But yeah, right, Alex can't teach you how to cut PPOs. But Alex can teach you how to think about your practice as a mindset, and you have to filter that. I think that comment that person made is very uninformed.
Well, people don't think that other industries apply to dental. Everyone thinks dental is so special. Dentists think dental is so special that I need a dental specific consultant. And again, I agree. I think it is good to listen to some dental specific consultants because I do think there are specific wheels they can turn. But I'll tell you, what is the biggest needle mover in any business? If you can bring in more customers for less advertising dollars and close a higher percentage of those customers for sales, would you say that would make any business in any industry better?
Listen, what solves all problems in business? Revenue. Revenue solves all problems in business. End of story.
Revenue and profit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but revenue leads to profit, right? Money solves all problems in business. End of story. Hey guys, we got to wrap this one up. Really good episode. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, share, follow. Please leave reviews. Me and Andrew love reading the reviews. It makes us feel good. There's no sponsors on the show. We don't plug really anybody. If we bring somebody on the show that has a product, they're not allowed to talk about their product. We bring them on as a subject matter expert around that subject. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day.